Good morning, dear guest. My name is Israel Rosas. I'm Director of Partnerships and Internet Development at the Internet Society, and I'm truly delighted to welcome all of you to this 2023 Internet Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Before we get this meeting started, I'd like to remind you that you can share with us your comments through the chat function on the right side of your screen. But please, when using the chat, please be mindful of the Internet Society Code of Conduct, whose link we are posting right now on the chat. Although this ceremony is presented in English, we are happy to offer simultaneous interpretation in French and Spanish. Please choose the language of your preference by clicking on the globe icon below your screen. Closed captioning is also available in these three languages, and you can access to it in the closed caption icon. Now, I would like to start by asking you a question for each of you to reflect upon. What does the internet mean for you? When I joined the Internet Society as a chapter member more than 10 years ago, it meant an opportunity to join a community that shared my values and my beliefs that the internet is for everyone. But today, it means celebration. During this ceremony, we'll honor the contributions of 9 internet pioneers who have shaped the internet that we use and love today. With no further ado, please welcome Andrew Sullivan, President and CEO of the Internet Society.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew, and I'm President and CEO of the Internet Society. I'm very excited to be here today to honor the new inductees to the Internet Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame recognizes people who made important contributions to the history of the internet, to the development of the internet, and so forth. And one of the things that struck me this year with this range of inductees is how they express the reality of the internet. You know, the internet, we treat it as one giant unified thing, but of course, it's actually made up of many, many different parts. Both the development of it in terms of protocols and in terms of the technology that makes up the internet, the way that the internet gets deployed in many different ways around the world, and the way that people can participate in the internet. And this is a key part of what has made the internet so strong, that has made the internet so useful to so many people, because it adapts to the local conditions, to the local circumstances of the people who use it, and of the conditions of deployment. And so I'm super excited to see the range of people who are being inducted this year because of the way that they express all of those features of the internet. And I'm looking forward to welcoming them into the Internet Hall of Fame in order to recognize the many contributions that they've made. So thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to the rest of the ceremony. Now, Isra, back to you.
Thank you very much. This class of 2023 wouldn't be possible without the pivotal role played by the Internet Hall of Fame Advisory Board. I have the honor of introducing Ellis Gehrig, Chair of the Internet Hall of Fame Advisory Board and 2019 IHOF inductee.
Thank you, Isra, for the introduction. And I want to tell everyone what a privilege it is to be here to discuss this Hall of Fame induction today, and to let you know about the advisory board, which is the group which was appointed to select this year's induction group. The goal of the advisory board is to recognize and celebrate the individuals who've made extraordinary contributions that have enabled the internet to grow and spread. And so we are quite pleased with this incoming class. So how do we go about selecting this class? Well, we receive all the nominations, first of all, which is the first step. And there is a subcommittee called the Vetting Committee. And the Vetting Committee reviews all the nominations as a first step to see that they have been submitted and are fully complete. The nominations come from the community. So the 19 members on our advisory board are only the full set who will make the selection. The Vetting Committee is a subset of the advisory board. So once we've received those nominations and the vetting committee has reviewed them and comes back to the full advisory board and says, these are the nominations which are fully complete and meet all of our criteria, the advisory board then meets weekly to review each and every one of the nomination forms. We are reviewing these nomination forms for the criteria of the Internet Hall of Fame. They are impact, influence, innovation, and reach. We discuss each candidate at least twice and determine how well they meet all of those criteria. And after we've reviewed and discussed each candidate, we come to a decision by consensus. By consensus, I mean that it's not a majority, but it's a significant majority. So basically, it's almost unanimous in every case. And this takes typically several weeks for us to go through all the nomination forms. We received quite a few nominations and are very, very pleased to be able to be part of the process of selecting the next group of nominees who will be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I guess that's what the advisory board does. We're volunteers. There are 19 of us. We're former inductees into the Internet Hall of Fame, and we're happy to welcome this incoming class. Thank you, Isra. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Elise. And please allow me to introduce my esteemed colleague, Natalie Campbell, Senior Director of North American Government and Regulatory Affairs. Because I previously said that today, in this ceremony, the Internet means celebration. But that's because it also means opportunities for everyone due to its design. However, recent developments have put that at risk. Can you tell us what's a splinternet and what we can do to prevent it from happening?
Sure. Thank you so much, Israel. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. It's a real honor and a pleasure to see everyone here. It's really great and so important to hear folks taking time to talk about the benefits of the internet and recognize the people doing amazing things to contribute to its greatness. Because more and more, people take the internet for granted. And that is one of the greatest threats the internet faces today. The internet has managed to stay relevant to our evolving needs over the decades, not by accident. It's because of the unique foundation of critical properties or values that binds it all together. And we call this at the Internet Society the Internet way of networking. The internet was designed to be open and seamless and ever evolving, which is why, without a doubt, it's the greatest resource of humanity of all time. And yet too often people forget that. Governments and businesses worldwide are increasingly trying to tackle challenges and social problems that we see on the internet. And in trying to do something to tackle and address these issues, they are making changes that impacts the internet and what the internet needs to exist and thrive in the first place. And they don't always know it. This is one of the major ways that internet fragmentation happens today. As countries and businesses worldwide try to tackle ambitious goals like keeping people safer online, promoting a strong news industry, thinking of initiatives to invest in the internet's infrastructure to keep on growing and meeting our evolving needs, decisions too seldom take care to protect what makes the internet in the first place. Internet fragmentation happens when governments or businesses put forward proposed rules and legislation and other decisions that not only undermine well-intentioned goals, but threaten the very infrastructure that the internet needs to exist. And so what happens is that the more of these decisions fail to protect what the internet needs to exist and thrive in the first place, the more the internet starts to splinter or shatter and transition from this one seamless internet to a collection of networks or islands of connectivity that no longer talks to each other or interoperates so seamlessly. And this has all kinds of devastating consequences for the humans and the users that rely on the internet and who really depend on the greatness it brings to our day-to-day lives. We've already seen fragmentation, lead to situations like in Canada recently, where there were forest fires and people could not share news over their most popular social networks in a time of crisis. And these are the kinds of consequences that, really make it ever important to take the time to make sure that our decision makers are protecting what the internet needs to exist and thrive, that we think about the impact of our decisions, because the minute we keep taking the internet for granted and we don't do our due diligence to protect it, and don't hold our decision makers to account to in fact protect it and use tools like the Internet Impact Assessment Toolkit, the more we're at risk of losing the internet that we love so much today. And I really appreciate the folks here that have done so many great things to the internet, and all of your work to advocate for the health of the internet. And thank you so much. Back to you, Israel.
Thank you very much. And the internet that we know and defend today facilitates a diverse range of applications and services, empowering people and enhancing their lives. We're able to use and shape today's internet thanks to the contributions of the internet pioneers we are celebrating today. And this is the moment you've been waiting for, our first 2023 inductee. He authored the file transfer protocol and network email, ultimately influencing the development of TCP/IP and early email standards. Please welcome Abhay Bhushan.
First, I want to thank the Internet Society for championing the internet, helping it grow, and recognizing the pioneers. I want to acknowledge my professor, Dick Leider, Vint Cerf and Steve Crocker, and others I worked with, IIT Kanpur and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where I got my education, and my spouse, Cybele, who was most supportive despite my late nights working at MIT. My internet journey began in 1967, October, when I was invited to a meeting in the Pentagon on the ARPANET. Security was mentioned. So I asked innocently to the person next to me in uniform, is security needed because we don't want the Russians to know what we are doing? No, he quipped. We don't want the army to know what the Air Force budget is. Such was the competition for resources from the Congress. In 1969, the ARPANET actually started. In the West, the first few nodes were formed. Soon after, MIT joined. In 1970, Bob Metcalfe connected the PDP-10, and I connected the MIT Multics. We had a race as to who would connect first. As I recall, I had the hardware working first, and Bob had the software working, so we called it a tie. Now I want to take you back to 1970s. At that time, 2 megabyte was a big mainframe computer, and 256 kilobits per second was the fastest transmission speed on the network. So we had to be ultra efficient in our design. We all, in the first network working group, worked on the precursor of TCP/IP, and my focus soon became applications. And we formed the file transfer working group. FTP was first released over 50 years ago in April of 1971 and included mail and mail file commands for email. Initially, to separate host names, we used a space followed by the letters A, the letter T, and a space. Ray Tomlinson at Bold Beranek and Newman was using the @ sign for communication between computers at BB&N. So it was more efficient, one character, and we adopted it for email addresses. One person commented in our group that @ sign was a kill character for teletypes. And we said, hey, how long are teletypes going to be around? And another person said that @ sign meant each at, or at the rate of, and may be confusing to people. But these objections were overruled, and the @ sign lives on to this day. People ask me if the pioneers ever imagined the internet becoming so huge. We thought that it would become the hub of information and the world's knowledge would be accessible by all, which is the Internet Society's objective, to make Internet accessible to all. However, we did not think of its commercial use, being from the universities and research centers, which the commercial use has really fueled the growth of Internet, and the future is going to be even more exciting with AI and virtual reality. It is an honor to join you and the pioneers who made the Internet happen. The Internet has revolutionized how we communicate, how we learn, and conduct our business. It has democratized information and made knowledge free. It will keep evolving and growing, and hopefully with well-connected global communities lead to a more peaceful world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. Our next inductee held a range of Internet leadership roles across academia, government, business, and non-governmental organizations that significantly influenced the development of Brazil's Internet. Ivan Moura Campos.
First, I would like to thank the members of the advisory board for their generous evaluation of my work. This award means a lot to me, and I'm truly honored to be in the company of people that I admire and respect. In so many ways, thank you. I would also like to thank the Internet community of Latin America and the Caribbean for having elected me to the ICANN board of directors in the year 2000, where I acted for over 3 years in the company of people who are always at the top of their game and selflessly giving their time and creative energy to the usually complex tasks at hand. My ICANN years were challenging, productive, exciting, filled with opportunities for growth and for working with the best. I am deeply grateful to so many who generously enriched my life there and then. I wish to thank the Internet Steering Committee of Brazil, which I helped create and chaired for a number of years, and especially the team at nic.br for their awesome work in establishing and maintaining high standards in each and every task and project that they execute. They continue to make us all proud, I'm glad to say. In the 1990s, as Brazilian Secretary for IT Policy, ICT Policy, I had the opportunity to play a role in making the transition from an academic network to a full-fledged commercial internet backbone with hundreds of private access providers. We departed from a state monopoly in telecoms to reach a competitive marketplace with all the implications that the older ones remember well. As I reflect here and now on those years past, there's a sense of privilege for the opportunities that I had and a sense of achievement that I share with the scores of talented people whose work made it all happen. I can't describe in words how honored I am. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. Now we'll welcome to the Internet Hall of Fame someone who united disparate organizations through the multi-stakeholder governance model and led key Internet bodies forging the way for the Brazilian and Latin American Internet and influencing Internet governance worldwide. Hartmut Glasser.
My excuse for my German, Portuguese, English. I stand before you with profound gratitude and deep humility as I am honored to be appointed to the ISOC Hall of Fame. This recognition is not just a personal achievement, but a celebration of collaborative efforts, shared ideas, and the power of inclusive decision-making. As we gathered here, we are united by our shared passion for the Internet and its transformative potential. The Brazilian multi-stakeholder internet governance model embodies the principles that make this global network so remarkable: inclusivity, transparency, and cooperation. The journey towards this achievement has been one of partnership and dedication. It's a testament to the tireless work of countless stakeholders, from government bodies, civil society organizations, to the private sector, academia, and also technical experts. Together, we have crafted a framework that ensures every voice is heard, every perspective considered, and every opportunity explored. In a world where the internet's impact reaches every corner of society, it is imperative that its governance reflects the diversity of its users. The Brazilian model is a testament to our unwavering belief that an open, accessible, secure internet is the foundation for progress, innovation, and empowerment. I would like to extend my deep appreciation to the Internet Society for granting me this prestigious honor. This recognition motivates my commitment to fight and defend the ideas that have guided our efforts: an internet that respects human rights, fosters creativity, and encourages collaboration. Let us remember that this journey does not end today. As we move forward, let's continue to shape an internet that empowers individuals and communities, that breaks down barriers and bridges gaps. Let's collaborate across borders, languages, and other gaps to ensure that the digital age remains a force for good. To my colleagues, mentors, partners, and fellow contributors, thank you for your dedication and vision. To all those who believe in the transformative power of the internet, let us stand united in our purpose for a brighter digital future. In accepting this honor, I am reminded that the true hallmark of success lies not only in our achievements, but in the positive change we inspire. Let's continue to be catalysts for progress, advocates for equality, and architects of an internet that truly serves the common good. Thank you once again for this incredible recognition.
Thank you very much, and congratulations again. Now it's my pleasure to introduce another wonderful colleague, Dr. Joseph Lorenzo Hall, Distinguished Technologist, Internet Strong at the Internet Society. Joe, welcome. I know that the Global Encryption Coalition is celebrating the Global Encryption Day on October 21. Can you tell us more about why encryption is important for the internet and how people can get involved?
Thank you, Isra. I sure can. In the real world, we rely on certain things to just work all the time. I'm a former physicist, and one of the most fascinating features of our universe is we can always count on the laws of physics and mathematics to just work. They never fail. This is the same here on planet Earth. Every day we rely on things that we quickly come to take for granted. Concrete, nails, wooden beams, these all keep our houses and buildings from falling down. The roads that we take to get to work don't suddenly take you somewhere else someday. You can count on that. Encryption is one of these basic things that we tend to take for granted, but it provides immeasurable benefit to us all. It's what allows our video calls and meetings like this to be secure from maldoers who might want to jump in. It keeps people from reading my files and plans and my family photos. And it keeps governments and corporations from rummaging around our lives, both online and on computers offline. The Internet Society founded the Global Encryption Coalition 4 years ago to provide a global response to attacks on encryption. One of our major events is Global Encryption Day on the 21st of October. This day, Global Encryption Day, is a time to celebrate the safety and security that encryption brings to our lives. It's a day to make sure that governments that want access to your most intimate thoughts hear from you and from us all about how critical encryption is in our lives and our businesses. Please check out globalencryption.org to learn more, join the Global Encryption Coalition, and to learn what you can do. We and fellow Global Encryption Coalition members and founders have a lot of plans for this year's Global Encryption Day. There are events leading up to the day and afterwards all around the world. For example, the Internet Society will hold a virtual summit on the technology and advocacy around something called client-side scanning, which is the latest push for backdoors in your encrypted services. Backdoors are bad, right? We cannot make a backdoor that only lets in good guys. When we put backdoors in our devices, servers, operating systems, and networks, inevitably, malicious attackers will take advantage of them, as we've seen many times in the past. The true promise of a global open internet can only be achieved if everyone finds it to be a trustworthy environment. We don't build sidewalks and roads in the physical world to crumble underneath suspected criminals. Why? Because a facility like that is exactly what we would expect bad guys to use to make sidewalks crumble underneath the feet of people that they don't like, or maybe they make it crumble underneath everyone all at once. Encryption is this glue, the mortar, so to speak, that holds our online spaces together and allows us to communicate and live online safely. Please join the Global Encryption Coalition on the 21st of October in celebrating what encryption provides and allows, and make yourself heard. You will not accept any compromise in security and trustworthiness online. I'm just privileged to have the inductees that spoke before and the ones that are coming up, and you have a real treat. Thank you, Isra.
On the contrary, thank you, Joe, because we know that we are able to deploy, use, and promote this variety of security features thanks to the tireless efforts of the internet pioneers we are honoring today. Our next inductee advocated for privacy and digital rights to advance the widespread adoption of HTTPS that ultimately made the internet safer, more secure, and accessible. We will share a video message on behalf of Peter Eckersley, our posthumous inductee, delivered by Brian Christian, a close associate and dear friend.
My name is Brian Christian, and I'm a close friend of Peter Eckersley's. It's an incredible honor and tribute to the work that Peter did that he is being inducted today into the Internet Hall of Fame. The Internet today is a safer, more secure, more open, and more free place because of Peter. We have come to take for granted the little lock icon that appears next to our browser's address bar, telling us that our connection is secure. But this is actually quite a recent development. 10 years ago, in 2013, only about 25% of web requests used a secure connection. Today, in 2023, that figure is about 90%. This is in significant part because of the work of Peter Eckersley. Peter, as part of his work at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, was behind the SSL Observatory, a breathtakingly ambitious project to inspect and analyze all of the publicly visible SSL certificates on the IPv4 internet, notifying site administrators of any misconfigurations or vulnerabilities that were found. He was also instrumental in developing HTTPS Everywhere, an extension for all of the major web browsers that defaulted users' requests to HTTPS whenever it was available. HTTPS Everywhere was used by millions of people, and it has just been officially retired after 13 years, now that most browsers are built to do this by default. One of the biggest remaining obstacles to web encryption was the difficulty of obtaining and deploying certificates. To overcome this obstacle, Peter co-founded the nonprofit certificate authority Let's Encrypt. Today, Let's Encrypt has issued nearly 4 billion certificates and has secured more than 320 million domains. His efforts to drive adoption of HTTPS have had an enormous and transformative impact on the internet, and they represent arguably the signature achievement of his career. But even this is only scratching the surface. Peter's projects like Panopticlick and Privacy Badger helped to protect users' privacy online, and he was not only a technologist, but also an advocate. Alongside his friend, former roommate, and fellow Internet Hall of Fame inductee Aaron Swartz, Peter was a driving force in the campaign against SOPA and PIPA. In the moments in our use of the internet when we can take our security and safety for granted and think of other things, those moments are part of the gift that he gave us all. Another part of his gift was not technical, but human. Beyond his technical work and his public advocacy, Peter was an incredible connector, able to build bridges, to introduce lifelong friends to one another, and to wrangle, a favorite word of his, a coalition together. He always seemed to be able to introduce just the right people to each other to make something happen. He was a mentor to his junior colleagues and someone who inspired the next generation to follow in his footsteps. Peter's vision, his technical skill, his charm and persuasiveness, and also his persistence and tenacity have made the internet and the world a better, safer, and fairer place.
Now, turning our attention to our next inductee, he invented secure sockets in 1991 and implemented the first secure socket layer named SMP in 1993. Which created a paradigm shift in security research for distributed applications. Simon Lam.
Hi, I thank everyone for attending and thank the Internet Society for honoring me. 33 years ago, in the year 1990, I was a professor at the University of Texas at Austin. I started to think about security of Internet applications as a new research topic. I was familiar with socket calls used by Internet applications to send and receive packets. I conceived the idea of a new security sublayer in the Internet protocol stack. This sublayer would make use of transport layer sockets for data transfer and in turn offers secure sockets to application processes. This way, application programmers do not need to know much about implementation details for security. Also, very importantly, the upper interface of such a sublayer would enable implementation changes in the future. I wrote a proposal to the National Security Agency, NSA. My proposal was funded for 2 years, from June 1991 to June 1993. By 1993, with the help of 3 graduate students, we designed and implemented the very first secure sockets layer. We named it Secure Network Programming with the acronym SNP. For the internet, network programming means socket programming. We demonstrated SNP to our NSA program manager when he visited us in June 1993. We also published and presented SNP in the Usenix Summer Technical Conference on June 8, 1994, including SNP's architecture, system design, and performance evaluation results to demonstrate its efficiency and practicality. When we began our research, the popular internet applications were just Telnet, email, and FTP. Our SNP work was carried out concurrently and independently of the invention and development of the World Wide Web. By early 1993, there were only dozens of World Wide Web servers in the entire world, and the Mosaic browser was still in the process of being developed. SNP created a paradigm shift in security research for internet applications. Subsequent secure sockets layers, SSL and TLS, developed years later for commercial browsers, followed the same architecture and key ideas in SNP. Today's secure sockets layer is TLS version 1.3. It is used for securing almost all e-commerce applications on the World Wide Web, for securing email and many other internet applications. My students and I won the 2004 ACM Software System Award with the citation for inventing secure sockets and prototyping the first secure sockets layer named SMP. At this point, I would like to thank my former students who helped me design and implement SMP. They are Thomas Wu, currently at Nokia Bell Labs, Raghuram Bindanavu, he is in India now, and Shawan Su, he is in China now. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much and congratulations. I am now thrilled to introduce yet another esteemed colleague, Michuki Mwangi, distinguished expert in internet growth.
Thank you, Isra. And good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I first heard of computers when I was in primary school, but I didn't actually not get a chance to see one until I had finished high school and was in college. The computers that I came across, unfortunately, did not have any internet connectivity. In fact, most of them were not networked. And those that were networked, were a small group of them, were using a proprietary protocol. Some of you may recall Novell Network. Fortunately, and I say fortunately, and I'll explain this later, I first experienced the internet when I started a part-time internship with a local entrepreneur in Nairobi who had been contracted as a dial-up installer for some of the first commercial ISPs operating internet services in Kenya. When I compare with today, setting up dial-up internet connections on poorly maintained copper lines was no fun at all, especially when it rained or during the rainy season. Attempting to install early versions of Windows, the Netscape Navigator browser, configuring dial-up networking using nearly 15 3.5-inch floppy disks took almost an entire afternoon if you're fortunate enough not to experience any errors. Now, despite this level of inconvenience and unreliability with the connection, the internet was outrageously expensive because you had to pay for the cost of dialing up by the minute and access separately. Later on, I got an opportunity to work for one of the ISPs that I used to install for. It was there that I got fully immersed in the inner workings of the internet and also get exposed to the internet technical community. Looking back, the technology used for connecting the internet or for accessing the internet has evolved significantly in the last 20 years in terms of the reliability and also the cost. So for instance, I live an equidistance to where I grew up today. And but today, when wherever I'm living in Nairobi, I'm served by at least 3 fiber operators and at a fraction of what it cost back in the early days of connectivity. Now, some of the things that I experienced throughout this period and that stood out, I'd like to share with you just for you to have a sense of what it means to bring connectivity to people in underserved areas. The first is the open sharing of knowledge and information between the technical people on how to solve technical issues. A lot of the knowledge folks like myself and others across the emerging markets learned was largely through the network operator groups, where we went out and got knowledge and learned various technologies, various techniques of how to troubleshoot and build scalable and reliable networks. Second, we also got to learn about the internet community and the structures that have been put in place to ensure that the internet continues to grow and evolve for the benefit of future generations. Third, we came across the champions, the selfless individuals with an infectious passion who give their time, efforts, knowledge, and resources for the betterment of the internet. They are essential to making the connections, guidance, and informing decisions that lead to great impact, some of whom we're here to celebrate today. As I said earlier, I was fortunate. I was fortunate to experience and access the internet more than 25 years ago. However, there are still 2.6 billion people in rural, remote, and underserved areas around the world that are yet to have access to the internet. Some of those people are in my country, Kenya. And so it means that I'm among the few fortunate ones that got access to the internet at an earlier stage. These people are faced with unreliable and expensive access where it is available. It's sort of reminiscent of the experience faced between the late 90s and early 2000s, trying to get internet access in capital cities located in emerging markets around the world. But now it is happening to those with far more limited resources and income. Our work at the Internet Society to connect the unconnected has highlighted the need for partnerships and collaborations in order to scale the efforts of bringing connectivity to everyone. We also value the lessons we learned from the experts, champions, and the trailblazers who've been doing this kind of work for much longer than we have and at different levels. I hope that you can share with us some insights on what we can continue to do to keep expanding connectivity to those who need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michuki. The efforts to connect the unconnected remain crucial. The contributions of the internet pioneers we are celebrating today have laid the foundations for addressing these critical issues. Our next inductee has been one of the earliest internet access activists who tirelessly addressed gaps in technology access and used to bring online millions of people and organizations. Laura Breeden.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and to address this audience. I want to thank, first of all, the Internet Society for its work to democratize the internet, and in particular, the advisory group for selecting me. It's a fantastic honor. I want to congratulate all of the other inductees who are part of this class. I'm very happy to accept this award, not just for myself, but on behalf of people everywhere who are working to close the digital divide and to build digital equity across the globe. When I started working on the internet in 1983 at Bolt, Beranek and Newman, access was only for defense and higher education institutions. But the power of a global open source system for linking computers quickly became obvious. And the demand from schools, libraries, local governments, and others began to change the nature of the internet. Academics throughout the world began to construct international research networks, and the internet started a quick evolution toward universal status. By 1994, the US government was very actively involved in promoting the deployment of the internet and, in fact, the growth of a commercial internet. At that point, I joined Larry Irving at the Department of Commerce to direct a new grant program. We were going to close the digital divide and jumpstart internet use by nonprofits and governments. As a result of our grants, people paved the way for a surge in internet use by hospitals, tribes, community networks, and others. In 2008, during the Great Recession, I returned to the Commerce Department to lead a new grant program. With $450 million plus matching funds, our grantees expanded hundreds of public computer centers and helped more than 700,000 low-income households get online. When I retired in 2015, My friend Angela Seifer was organizing a campaign to change the direction of the FCC's Lifeline program. Decisions were in process that could have meant it was even more difficult for low-income people to get access to the internet. When I thought about this, I knew that it was not going to be a one-time situation, that advocates for digital equity needed to organize. So that evening, in a bar in Alexandria, where of course all the important things happen, Angela and I agreed to go big. And the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, or NDIA, was born. I became the founding board chair in 2017. Today, NDIA is setting the standard for equitable internet expansion in the 21st century, informing digital equity policy, influencing important legislation like the Infrastructure Act, and building a community of over 1,400 affiliate organizations in 50 states, DC, and 6 territories. When we hear from leaders like Vice President Kamala Harris that internet is not a luxury, it is a basic necessity, we feel the effects of the digital equity movement. When we reached a milestone this summer of 20 million households signed up for the Affordable Connectivity Program, we felt the effects of the movement. The fact that I, had a long career focused on reducing internet disparities speaks to several things. The first is that society is too willing to tolerate inequity and poverty, something that we urgently need to address. Right now, we're debating the extension of the Affordable Connectivity Program, for example. What will we decide? Another takeaway for us is that the problem of lack of access was invisible to decision makers because everyone they knew had access. The pandemic of 2020 changed that. Now we have a better shot at achieving digital equity if we have the will. I accept this honor today from ISOC with deep thanks. Both to ISOC and to all of my colleagues along the way who've been part of this journey. And I also have much hope in the growing movement for an equitable and open internet. And I invite everyone to join us next week at digitalinclusion.org for Digital Inclusion Week 2023. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. Our next inductee led Apple Computer's early grant program for libraries, where he funded projects connecting libraries to the internet throughout North America, with a focus on under-resourced communities. Kindly watch this video message on behalf of our posthumous inductee, Steph Sisler, delivered by his son, Jeff Sisler.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Sisler, and along with my brother Eric and my stepmother Nancy, I am honored to accept Steve Sisler's induction into the Internet Hall of Fame. I'm happy to do this in my father's place, since he would probably be too modest to accept this. Still, I wish he were alive to experience this appreciation. As children, the joke we had in our family was that we never totally understood what our dad did for a job. The title on his business card at Apple in the 80s was Library Evangelist, which at the time was confusing and vague for a kid, but that's only because I didn't realize in the 80s that a sea change was coming for what libraries could be. But he knew, he definitely knew. His career working in libraries and ultimately discovering the world of personal computers in the 1980s led to this day. I can distinctly remember as a kid going to the Berkeley Mac Users Group meetings, lugging his Apple Macintosh SE in the custom duffel bag that Apple sold at the time, and sitting around with a bunch of other enthusiasts, watching them fiddle with the insides of their open computers, and I had no idea what they were talking about. It's probably not a coincidence that I'm a software engineer now. My dad had a colorful history in life. In addition to him being the pioneer in community networking that you are all honoring him for, He was also a teacher, a winemaker, bread baker, chef, gardener, and walking encyclopedia. He was always interested in meeting new people and would chat with random strangers to ask where they were from and inevitably have some connection to that location. He biked and hitchhiked around Bali, kayaked in Amsterdam and Berlin, attended back-to-back conferences in Australia and Turkey, and always came home with new experiences. Of course, he shared that knowledge with us, his family, and others. Now, my dad was not an engineer, but nevertheless already had so much real-world experience with computers and the internet back while everyone was still referring to it as cyberspace. I read of him being referred to as the first cyber librarian, which sounds like the correct title given that this was about the time that Well and Wired magazine were breaking virtual ground. My dad's history of being a librarian really did give him a different perspective on how the internet could change lives. A librarian interacts with people of every background and level, and I believe that's what he was working for, the idea that the internet should be available to everyone. Even as I say this, it's hard to appreciate. Today, over 95% of Americans own a mobile phone of some kind, but in the 90s, it was a struggle to get any internet access, much less even have a personal computer to do so. By working with small and resource-poor communities in both the United States and abroad, I felt like he was mirroring Andrew Carnegie's building of libraries a century before, but instead by adding computers and internet access. I don't believe the internet would be as open and inclusive as it is without my father's contributions, and my family and I are so grateful that so many of you feel the same. Thank you.
Now it's time to continue our celebration by honoring our next inductee who helped pave the way for widespread internet use in the United States by co-founding the first statewide internet-based network and one of the world's first two commercial internet service providers. William Schrader, who is not able to join us today, and shared a video message with us.
For those of you who consider me a friend, thank you for the nomination and support for this recognition. There's no doubt that the rapid spread of the internet across the globe was due to commercialization. We commercial pioneers were driven by the original internet culture, free flow of information, minimal regulations, and no government controls. We felt we were changing the world, and we were. The first router used by the Commercial Internet Exchange, or KIX, which was founded by PSINet, SurfNet, and UUNet, is in the Smithsonian Museum of American History. That is cool. Why did the internet succeed when other technologies failed? Among many reasons was the open cooperation among the global technical community supporting the internet. What we pioneers could not do, however, was keep control of our companies when governments and incumbent telcos changed the laws. Some ISPs were acquired, thousands were forced into bankruptcy due to the FCC regulatory manipulations backed by Congress. The ultimate winners here were the entrenched cable and telco monopolies, aided and abetted by the FCC, which had intentionally eliminated all serious competition. Disillusionment among all of the pioneers is real. Instead of widespread information, we have disinformation. Instead of robust cross-border flow of information, there's government controls. A Pew study reports that experts believe that people's use of technology will undermine democracy. Today, the commercial internet is primarily a tool of big corporate and government interests. The greatest challenges of this era include climate change, the rapid deployment of AI. It is clear that the commercial internet has created opportunities for the evil side of mankind to excel with speed and lack of accountability. Can we do better? Right now, I don't think so. It's now up to the next generation to give it a try.
Now I have the honor to introduce our next inductee, who played an essential role in connecting many Central American and Caribbean countries to the internet, leading both negotiations and technical aspects of multiple key connections projects. Guy de Terramont.
I am honored to receive this award. This journey started more than 30 years ago with so many challenges and expectations, and along the way, great experiences and happy moments. Throughout the projects which followed over many years, I was privileged of meeting remarkable people and having great collaborators, which often resulted in friendships to these days. One of the major obstacles that hindered the introduction and expansion of the internet was the overwhelming presence of the state telecommunication monopolies, who mandated the communication protocols in sharp contrast with the decentralized and open architecture of the internet. Another major obstacle for geographically isolated countries was the dependence on the Intelsat communication satellites. At that time, there was no oceanic fiber. The Intelsat Intergovernmental Consortium turned out to be inaccessible. When I learned that a new digital satellite from a small private company, Panamsat, had a footprint covering a large expanse of Latin America, I knew then that the interconnection project to the internet was possible. Circumstances can also be favorable at times. The first phase of the Internet Working Program resulted in the connection of the University of Costa Rica, UCR, to a US bid node in 1990, and the connection of Panama to the UCR node in 1992. This was followed in 1993 by the interconnection of Costa Rica to the internet, using the NSF point of presence established then by Steve Goldstein, and a few months later, the implementation of the National Research Network, CRNet, based on the TCP/IP internet protocols. An important collaboration with the Organization of American States, OAS project, under the leadership of Saul Hahn, from 1994 to 1997, resulted in the pioneer connections of Nicaragua, Panama, Honduras, Jamaica, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Belize to the internet. The OAS also provided a satellite ground station for CRNet. A few years later, I was appointed head of the Ministry of Science and Technology of Costa Rica. It was a unique opportunity to use the knowledge we have acquired at UCR to bring broadband connectivity across the country. The initial phase of this project was successfully implemented in 2001. Later, in 2014, I contributed to the establishment of the Internet Exchange Point, CRIX, that allows for internet traffic between all the telecom operators in the country. This project was critical during COVID lockdown. I also participated in the organization of the Network Information Center, NIC, and the Internet Consulting Council in Costa Rica, which has become a reference for internet governance. Finally, I would like to thank the Internet Society, the people who nominated me, all the people who have made these projects happen, especially my collaborators who greatly contributed. We are all part of this great adventure that is the internet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. Congratulations to our newest Internet Hall of Fame inductees. By looking at your groundbreaking contributions, we are inspired to keep building, promoting, and defending an internet of opportunities for everyone. The internet is what helped us stay connected when the global pandemic kept us apart. It has expanded our opportunities for work and education, and it's given us the chance to explore corners of the world many of us have only ever dreamed of exploring. We have a vision that the internet is for everyone. Through generous donations from the public, the Internet Society has been able to directly fund projects and initiatives around the globe that change lives. We've been actively engaged in several projects, such as the Murabinda Works, a community network in Zimbabwe that helped a local hospital school to revert critical challenges in benefit of more than 100,000 people. We also helped deploy W4C, the first community network in Chanderi, India, where internet access has positively impacted the local weaving community, allowing them to more than doubling their income. In Pakistan, we founded Digital Dira, a community network that, by connecting rural farmers to technology, has helped them to save nearly 70% of money and effort. We cannot empower communities without you. Please donate today. My name is Israel Rosas, and it was a thrilling honor being part of this ceremony and your host today. Thank you. Congratulations again to the Internet Hall of Fame inductees, and see you in 2025 for our next induction ceremony.